if you don't take anything from this episode right now, is you should have some type of entity for two things: protection and participation.
If this is your first time visiting with us, this is Commerce and Chill, where we talk about everything that's business, that's life, that's love, from the perspective of two entrepreneurs, small business owners who work together, live together, and just happen to be married.
Two crazy people who are in business together.
Yeah, that's how it feels right now. It's been a real crazy week, but I saw something yesterday that really got me encouraged. It said, when you talk to winners, the conversation changes. And so the thought I want everybody to leave today's episode is make sure you're surrounding yourself with winners so that you're having the right kind of conversations, you have the right kind of thoughts, you're making the right kind of actions so that you can win in business and life and in love. Wouldn't you agree, Chief?
Yeah, you are. What's that thing I always say? And people, some of you guys look at me crazy. Birds of the same feather flock together. So yeah, if you, whatever, water seeks. No, not water seeks. Just be mindful of, company you keep. I don't know what else to say. I know what else to say, but yeah, just be mindful of company you keep, because those traits or whatever is going to rub off on you, or you're going to rub off on them. So yeah.
So I think that was a very timely quote, because now is what I consider a winning season. And even though I look like I pulled myself together, it's been a very busy past few weeks in terms of proposals, RFPs, requests for proposals, requests for quotes, and business opportunities passing by our doorstep. And there's some opportunities that we may at one point have passed on, but now we're more proactive about going after. And I know that the team is probably looking at me like, Ms. Johnson, what are you talking about? Because what we said we're going to talk about is S-Corp, C-Corp, B-Corp, choose the right structure for your business. What I think would probably be more appropriate is, because we're not tax advisors.
Yes, anything we say today
is our own opinion.
Is our own opinion, and we recommend that you seek legal counsel and financial counsel for anything you hear today. We are not liable for any decisions you make based on whatever craziness we say, even though it's factual for what we do, but might not be factual for what you need to do. But again, this is just our view and opinion, and it's for entertainment purposes only. That's what a disclaimer.
And edification.
For the disclaimer. But it's still small business experience, mid-sized business experience that we live and go through on a daily basis.
So from time to time, people will come to us and say, I'm thinking about starting a business. I have an idea. What kind of business structure should I have? Let me tell you, have a business structure. That's where you start. A business structure, not no business structure, a business structure. And we were talking in preparation for today's episode yesterday, and like a thought flashed through my mind, like, you can't go public with a sole proprietorship. Like, I know it sounds crazy.
I'm IPOing me. I'm contacting up one of the major banks, and I'm an IPO me.
So if you are thinking about a business that you intend to grow, so that you make a lot of money, get a lot of business, serve a lot of people, that you make yourself happy, or that you one day plan to sell, just think, in many cases, a sole proprietorship is not the optimal business entity to have. So again, contact your legal representation and financial representation to see what's best for you. But we have different business structures. So for example, one of our businesses is an S-Corporation, and the other is an LLC, which stands for Limited Liability Corporation.
Soon to be something else.
So we have those structures in place so that we're recognized by the state. We have different foundation in terms of documents that we need to file, as well as tax reporting that we have to do. And in addition to that, it gives us some level of liability protection. And it also makes a difference in terms of how our taxes, what they call pass through to us personally. But again, what's best for you is between you and your financial and legal representation. But moving on to it being winning season. You probably heard me say this before. Now is a great time to be in business if you're Black. Now is a great time to be in business if you're a woman. And if you're a black woman like me, it's Christmas.
Well, yeah. Finally.
What does that mean?
I'm just saying finally, but it's because I'm assuming you're saying it because of all what's going on between, I was about to say civil rights, but because of all the political and corporate attention from, George Floyd to BLM, Me Too, and just a lot of, talk about the large gap between wages and finances between women and men, and then there's a whole nother category of women of color compared to men, and then Caucasian men. There's a huge gap, and I forget what the stats are.
Latina women make even less.
Yeah, so I get what you're saying. It's
and please,
it's a good time because it's getting a lot of attention, and some places are looking to work with businesses that are MWBEs, minority owned, women owned business enterprises. So it's a time where you can get some attention and convert this negative into a positive for your business on yourself.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's a level playing field. It's still far from a level playing field.
It's not even close. You're not even on the same field. Let's be clear.
There just are additional opportunities that are available that if we don't take advantage of them now, then they may potentially pass us by and not come back. So when we see opportunities that are set aside for women-owned businesses, or that's set aside for minority-owned businesses, or set aside for small business, it's incumbent for us at a minimum to show up. I was on a call yesterday. New York City Small Business Services has an initiative that they call We NYC for women enterprises to try to encourage more business opportunities for women here in the city. And they talked about different ways to increase how to get contract ready. And many of us are not contract ready because we've never had that contract. So how do you even know what to do? How do you know where to start? And so they gave us tips as to where we could look for opportunities. And if we're starting out, some people talked about fake it till you make it, right? And in some situations that can help. But if you want long-term prosperity, if you want long-term wealth, that is not going to be sufficient.
Yeah,
you need to stop faking.
I'm not a buy into that. Like, I get the whole saying, fake it till you make it. But, let's be clear. To me, there's a difference. And I know some people are going to be like, yeah, I've heard some of these other big entrepreneurs talk about, like, you get it, you get the business and you do whatever, and then they figure it out and become, successful or get the job done to maintain the account, whatever the case might be. But when I look at it, there's a clear difference between faking it until you're making it, and you get this opportunity and then you go and you figure out what the hell you got to do to get it done and to maintain it. That's two different things. So, like, be careful walking around here with, with using that terminology or in that mindset where you're like, yeah, I'm just going to fake it till I make it. If your mindset is you're going to fake it till you make it, you're going to keep faking it because you're not going to make it, because you're not changing your mindset to make it. Now, someone who goes after, a account that they normally don't go after, and they've done some due diligence, done some work, because you mentioned contract work, right? You do the due diligence, you look at the RFP, and you're like, yeah, there are a few things in there we haven't done a whole lot of, but we've done some of, or I have a colleague who does this, or I've met someone who's done that. So if I can execute 85% of this contract, or maybe 80%, there's another 20% that I'm a little gray about, but I do have some resources, or I can, start pulling a bunch of all-nighters and figure out how do I get this other 20% done, even if I have to bring somebody else in, and it's going to cost me a little more. So maybe it reduces my profit margin that I projected, but I'm able to satisfy that client and then figure out how do I turn that into, how do we turn that into more by getting in the door with that opportunity. So yeah, like, I'm putting it on the record, like, fake it till you make it. Like, get it, figure it out, work even harder to keep it, and then to get more. Yeah.
So you have a business, think about starting a business, make sure you have your business structure in order, that your paperwork with the state is in order, your licensing is in order, because there's another opportunity we're currently pursuing. That's another small business set aside. Now, mind you, the agency, when they set up the RFP, they were taking their direction from the large prime who has like 95% of the contract with this one particular agency. And so what the prime contractor was telling them was like gold. I said, no, this doesn't make sense. So I read over the RFP, had conversations with different vendors, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. And went back to the agency and gave them feedback based on what I had heard from other vendors, based on our experience, and based on conversations with the vendors that we use. So for example, they wanted like $25 million in insurance. By the way, if you buy an insurance policy off the internet and you buy in business insurance, more than likely you're not going to get $25 million worth of business insurance on the internet.
You need to talk to a broker.
Get a broker. Let somebody who's experienced know how to do this.
And so talk to a couple people, like just not one.
Our broker came back and said, this is unrealistic based on the work that's outlined here. A more reasonable limit would be $5 million. So I went back to the agency. I said, why is it $25 million? I'm not going to be doing this.
They don't know. They chose some arbitrary number based on something else.
I said, well, my broker said, and they were like, oh, and I gave them some other feedback. I heard this. So
did they change it based on the feedback?
They did update the RFP. They issued an addendum and they changed some of the requirements.
Right.
Now, in waiting for them to revise what they were looking for, I talked to a couple of other diverse small businesses in the area, because the RFP also requires that even if you're a small business, you need to subcontract to other diverse businesses.
Totally.
So we don't want to, we don't want to say, oh, we're woman owned, we're minority owned. We don't have time for any other woman owned or minority owned businesses.
There's enough slices in that pizza to pass around.
Right. And you could like oregano, I could like oregano, we could still eat. So I reached out to one gentleman.
Oregano? I'm talking about pizza, the slice
you put
in the pie.
oregano on top.
Oh, all right.
So crushed red pepper.
Okay.
Okay, crushed red pepper.
Once you take your slice, you can do whatever you want with it. I'm just talking about the slices in the pie. But go ahead,
Anyway,
oregano lady.
So I had reached out to this one particular vendor, and he was just like an old curmudgeon about it. He was like, oh, they want this licensing. Oh, I can't do this. Oh, like.
So he just basically complained while he's on the phone with you.
He just complained, yes.
Yes, I don't even want to hear about that. So
but that was before they came back with the revisions.
It doesn't matter. And I'm not saying your story doesn't matter. What I'm saying is for our community, like it doesn't matter. And when I say it doesn't matter is that here's a classic example of what we're talking about. There's an RFP, there's opportunity. They're targeting small and mid-sized business purposely in this RFP. So there are some things in the RFP as a business owner, you're going to know just what they're asking is probably not, like you said, it's not feasible. I don't want to say it's unrealistic, but it's slightly far-fetched, right? Because sometimes they don't know. They haven't been educated. They're just going by what maybe some big firm told them, because the big firm has an agenda to keep little firms out so they can just continue gobbling up all that business. Who knows? And I'm just using an example. Or maybe they're just using an RFP that they got from another department and they just copied the language into that. And we all copy and paste stuff all the time.
Without reading for context.
Right? So, because maybe you're just not familiar with it. You're like, I need a template. So you start with that. So maybe they did that. Who knows what the reason were?
Right.
But to listen to the individual just complain versus taking a different approach and reading through it and saying there's about 15 things that really don't apply. They're not applicable to a small or mid-sized business. If you're and then going back to that agency individual, the contract agent saying, listen, if your goal is to get small businesses involved, I got 15 tips. I got 15 bullet points for you to help you in this. Because based on this RFP, if you're saying there's a $25 million insurance, you're going to probably exclude 90% of them off the back, because that's a ridiculously high number for what you want that small business to do. And that policy is going to cost a small business this, if they even can qualify for it. So then when you go back to them with that information, now someone can look at you and say, you've provided them with detailed educational information. You're just not, man, this is BS. There's $25 million. You don't want small firms to work on this, or you're not trying to be inclusive, right, because this is impossible. Like if you just start ranting and raving, and I get the frustration, listen, been there, done that. I'm there right now dealing with stuff. It's frustrating. Like I get it. But that's only going to get you so far if it gets you anywhere at all.
That's not going to win.
And I can think of plenty, when I was on the community board, I could think of plenty of people who would come to those meetings and they would just yell, scream, bark and everything. And let's be clear, a lot of their points were super valid. It was their delivery that caused their message not to get through and to move forward. So this, going back to this, right?
So long story short, after the revisions were sent out, I reached out to him. I sent him an email and said, what do you think now? I don't have that license. Now, mind you.
Bump it, go get it.
Right. But right. If it means that you can potentially now compete for what's going to be a multi-million.
How much does it cost to get a license? Depending where it are. Like a couple
license
$100
here costs like not even let's say $500
for a firm to get licensed in
$500
in particular state. And
$100 to get the license.
Depending on what you do, some states don't even require a license. You know, I'm just talking security right now. Some states
say you had
just got to register. Like,
say it was $1,000, and that his cut would be over $1 million a year for 5 years.
Gross.
Yeah.
Right. So you spend $1,000. Of course, you got to do some other work and some other. But you know, let's just boil it down. The person's not licensed. They spend $1,000, and now they're licensed, and they take part in this, and they get $1 million worth of gross business a year. Like, what is? I don't like the return. You tell me I spend $1,000, I get $1 million. Granted, we still talking gross. I'm in. Like, because then if I'm getting $1 million, I'm going to look at all my expenses and figure out how do I manage the hell out of those expenses to perform this $1 million worth of work, so I can have me a good chunk of profit left over.
Right. And meanwhile, while he's complaining and telling me what he's not going to do, I'm like, cool, fine, bump it. Let me go to the next company on the list. There's a list of over 200 certified firms. If he's not going to work with us, we're going to find somebody else who did. And 2 large prime contractors had contacted us like, we want you on our team. Here's our paperwork. Look it over. If it works, sign it back. Right. And then they're like, wait, we still haven't gotten your paperwork. We really want to work with you. Holla at us.
So let's go back.
Can you pick up 5,000 hours a week? Can you hire an additional 100 people, additional 200 people?
So I'm sure that's based on that phone call you got from the larger firm who said they're trying to work with smaller firms, and then they'll say like half of them don't even have a license, or like they don't have people or something like that.
Right. She said, can you send us a picture of your uniform? I'm like, what?
Oh, what? She was like, because
She's like, because we've hired people before and their guards don't have uniforms.
Yeah. But so we're talking about in this episode, we're talking about different business entities. And again, we can't tell you what type of entity you should have for your business.
You should have a winning entity.
And we kind of started rambling, but I want to go back to this RFP thing. So in the RFP, the request for proposal, there are certain requirements the business needs to meet. Now, just throwing it out there real quick, is one of the requirements that you have to be some type of business legal entity.
Yes.
Right. So you need to be some type of entity, whether it's a LLC, a S-Corp, or C. You need to be a corporation. Now, which type of corporation you choose to form under, that's up to you, and you have to figure out what your legal and financial person. But you want to have some type of legal entity, right? You need to have some type of incorporated entity, because some agencies and some other businesses, they're not going to work with you unless you have that. Because some of the first things they're going to ask for, what's your EIN number? Your
employee identification number.
Right. And now
federal
some people will be like, oh, well, I do whatever. And they use their social security number as the EIN number. You can do that. But let's think about this now. You start doing this work with these larger entities. And honestly, these larger entities are probably not going to hire you if, depending what it is, so let me be careful what I say, depending what it is, they're not going to hire you to work with them on these proposals as an individual versus an entity. Because what's going to happen is when they send you some of these when they send you the contract documentation, there's going to be a lot of talk about indemnification and who's going to be responsible for what if this goes wrong. And like most of the talking there is when goes sideways, who's going to be the blame for it, who's going to pay for it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, one thing you want to be careful of, if you're operating as an individual, right, as a sole proprietor, you are 100% liable personally for what's going on. There is no protection. There is no corporate veil to protect you for what's going on. Now, there's sometimes people can say, oh, well, like, you can have a corporation and blah, 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 and they can still come after you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yes and no. one, you need to make sure you don't commingle your funds, right? Because as soon as you pierce the corporate veil, you're showing that this corporation is not separate from you. So there are plenty of you, hopefully not, but I'm going to throw it out there because I've heard it, who have a corporation and you're commingling your personal money and the corporation money. That is a big no-no. You want that entity to be totally separate. It should have its own bank account. You should not be using your personal bank account for it. Ladies and gentlemen, it costs pennies to incorporate. Pennies. You can do that online. Like you can call these different firms and they will incorporate for you. I'm not saying you should do it. You can go to a professional and say, hey, listen, you can go to your attorney, your accountant. They'll probably charge you, I don't know, $2,000, $1,500, depending on who they are, right? You can probably do it yourself online. If they tell you like you should be a LLC or you should be a C-Corp or you should be a S-Corp, and then you get the instructions from them and go file it yourself, or you hire like one of these firms that you can talk to and pay directly, they'll do it for you. They'll do the filings, they'll do the advertisement in the local papers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you talk to your legal and financial professional to make sure you got everything right. And then you let your accountant or whoever handle your books and do the filings for you if you want. But at least you have that protection. You should not be running your business stuff through your personal account, because now you're just saying you and the business are one. You need to be totally separate. And you know, the chances of stuff going wrong, depending on what you do, are probably slim. But in that rare case when does go sideways, you want to be able to take a step back and be like, I don't got to worry about my house, or I don't have to worry about whatever money I have in my personal account or whatever savings I have, et cetera, my child's college tuition that's sitting somewhere, because this went sideways in the business. They go after the business and then it stops. It doesn't come after you. So you should have it. And there's a lot of things you won't be able to participate in if you don't have these entities. And PPP is over, but let me put it out there. And I'm sad and somewhat disappointed, because I personally know of businesses who, when PPP came out, first round, second round, they were talking to me and I was like, yo, you should get PPP, right? You get PPP, and there's other business owners telling me like, I don't want to mess with the IRS. I don't want to deal with it. Like, I get it. Like, but let's be clear. The documents you had to submit for PPP, they had already. So if you're telling me I don't want to submit documents to the IRS, unless you're doing some shady, you don't want to submit it to it was tax returns. It was like your books for whatever period. Bro, sis, they had that already. If you filing taxes at the end of the year, they got that. They want you to just resubmit what you already gave to them. And then the bank looks it over with SBA and then they're like, you're approved. But forget that. You submit it. You get it. Even if you had to pay it back, what was it, like 3% or like 1.5%? It
was 0.998%, less than 1%.
You had let's just say 1%. You had a 1% loan for, what was it, like 5, 8, 10 years, whatever it was. 1%. That is cheap money. So even if you did get it and you didn't get it forgiven, you're paying it back at 1% over whatever time frame it was. But the other part is, I know plenty of small businesses who got PPP, we're talking about first round now, applied for forgiveness, and it was 100% forgiven for them. They just got free money. Like, so,
and basically the forgiveness application was like, okay, check this box, sign here. Are you good?
This. So if you don't take anything from this episode right now, is you should have some type of entity for two things: protection and participation. Because there's you're not going to be able to participate in, because you're still running around here willy-nilly, running through your personal account, trying to pretend like you're a business, but you're not. So, and if I hurt your feelings, I'm sorry. But this might be the thing that gets your ass in gear to say, you know what? I'm incorporating and I'm looking at New York City. New York City has the biggest budget ever that they talking about rolling out this year. And then we got major elections going on. Like, the most people are being elected in city elections right now ever. Like, what is it? Like half of city council is up for election. Mm-hmm. The mayor, the controller, the public advocate. Like, there's a bunch of positions that people are running for now. And it's all this big talk now about small businesses. We're here for you. And if you don't if you're in a city, town, whatever your locale is, if you're not registered with these different agencies and you're getting alerts from them, Like in New York City, was it Passport or
Yeah,
ePass, whatever. I get these emails and they're like, we have dry cleaning services for the police department. We have laundry services for
corrections,
or for
the homeless system.
for Department of and I'm like, click, proposal sent. Like I have a template ready. So when they come in, I'm like, I ask them a couple questions, they get back to me, fire away. And then they get it and they're like, wow, like thank you. Like
so protection,
PMP.
Protection and participation. It is winning season. We want you to win. In order to win in this winning season, you need to have the business basics. The business basics will be a sound business structure based on feedback from your financial and legal representation, the right licenses and certifications, proper tax registration, and the right financials.
Can you even get certified as an MWBE without having an entity for this?
You could be a sole proprietor.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that is an entity.
Right. Can you incorporate as a sole proprietor? I think they do have a thing for.
It's not incorporation. It's just sole proprietorship.
Right. You're just operating as a sole proprietor,
right.
But you don't have any. You don't have any.
And then just as a footnote, I know we have some freelancers out there.
You could still be a freelancer.
You can
and still
freelance
you can have
and
an
still
LLC.
have a business structure. Don't get lazy with it, because we're getting ready for the Olympics. We just finished. Getting ready for NBA championship.
We just finished with the Olympics.
No, I said we're about to say we just finished with basketball season. We're not finished with the New York.
Some people
teams,
not going.
New York teams have finished their basketball season. This is a winning season in sports and in business. We want you to win. Get the business basics together.
If you're starting something, you're doing something, and you break even, I don't want you kicking yourself, and maybe you come up short a little bit too. Like you come up negative a little bit. And maybe this is your first time doing it, or you only been in the game for a hot minute. Don't let that get you down because you hear what other people's saying and you see, or they talking about. Because let me tell you something, most people ain't telling you the truth anyway, right? There are a lot of small businesses, there are a lot of businesses, period, getting their kicked right now. And there are a lot getting their kicked, period, because this game is not easy. Because it's forever changing things. You have to deal with a lot of different dynamics, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're close, you're breaking even, or you're close to breaking even, you need to look at that as what else can I got this.
What little changes can I make
to get me to the next? Like I got this far doing this. Now what else can I do to go to the next level? Like, and I'm not
That's
saying
a whole nother episode.
It is. I'm not, and by no means don't you even interpret me saying be content with that. I'm just saying you need to look at it and be like, if I did this, what else can I do? Like I accomplished this. Now let me put some more gas in it. Let me put another log on the fire. Let me stoke this thing and let me go one more up. Because if you made it that far with whatever resources you had or didn't have or lack of, and you accomplished that, it's game on.
Let's just start making the small changes. Last fact. In 2014, there were 1.7 million traditional C corporations compared to 7.4 million partnerships and S corporations and 23 million sole proprietorships. Sole proprietorships in many cases are not winning. We want you to win. Get your business structure together and come back to another episode of Commerce and Chill, where we'll give you more tips, more fun facts, and more motivation so you can get that million, you can get profitable, you can grow your business, and you can win.